Hello everyone. Today I'm back in Nashville, Tennessee, home of the longest running radio show in the United States, the Grand Old Opry. To understand the popularity of the Opry, you have to go all the way back to its beginnings, and that's what we're going to do in this episode of the Tombstone Tourist. Today I'm at the Laguardo Cemetery in Wilson County, Tennessee. This is a small community cemetery about 30 miles northeast of Nashville. It appears to be a rather old cemetery, as in the short time that I've been walking around, I've noticed several graves dating back to the Civil War. I've tried to read some of the older stones, but most are weathered and difficult to read. So far, the earliest death I've been able to read was 1852. I'm sure there's some that are older. I just haven't been able to find them. Now, let's get to the subject of today's video. The Grand Old Opry got its start in the 5th floor studio of the National Life and Accident Insurance Company here in Nashville. It was there, on November 28, 1925, the solemn old judge, George D. Hay, stepped to the microphone and introduced a 77-year-old fiddle player who could fiddle the taters off the vine, named Uncle Jimmy Thompson. James Alexander Thompson was born in 1848 near Baxter, Tennessee. When he was around 12 years old, his family moved to Texas, and it was while in Texas that veterans returning from the Civil War taught a young Jimmy how to play the fiddle. Sometime in the 1880s, Jimmy moved back to Tennessee and began playing the fiddle at local events. But in 1907, he was back in Texas and gained notoriety when he won an 8-day fiddling contest in Dallas. In 1916, Jimmy again returned to Tennessee and bought a farm here in Wilson County. But Jimmy soon discovered that he was not up to being a farmer, so he bought a truck, put a makeshift camper on it, and for the next several years traveled about Tennessee, playing at fairs, festivals, and other events throughout the volunteer state. In 1923, Jimmy returned to Dallas and again won the 8-day fiddling contest. After winning the Dallas contest for the second time, Jimmy returned to Tennessee, and in 1925 he captured the attention of George D. Hay, who had been hired by radio station WSM to develop a weekly radio show called the WSM Barn Dance. On November 28, 1925, the solemn old judge stepped to that microphone in that 5th floor studio and introduced Uncle Jimmy Thompson. That night, Uncle Jimmy became the very first performer on what was to become the Grand Ole Opry. Uncle Jimmy continued to appear on the Barn Dance as a weekly performer, but as the program became more popular, the show became more structured, and Judge Hay began scheduling other performers for specific time slots. Uncle Jimmy didn't take to this new structure and often played well past his allotted time. This led to conflicts between him and Judge Hay, which resulted in Uncle Jimmy's appearances being reduced. In 1928, Uncle Jimmy Thompson appeared only twice on the Opry. Those 2 appearances were his last Opry performances. After leaving the Opry, Uncle Jimmy again hit the road, and because of his Opry notoriety, he was often the headliners at fairs and festivals throughout Tennessee. In 1930, Jimmy traveled to Knoxville, where he recorded a number of fiddle tunes called Uncle Jimmy's Favorites. These recordings featured such tunes as Flying Cloud, Leather Breeches, and Flop-Eared Mule. These were Uncle Jimmy's last recordings. Less than a year later, February 17, 1931, the Grand Old Opry's very first performer passed away from the complications of pneumonia. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of the Tombstone Tourist. I hope you enjoyed my visit to the grave of the man who was the Grand Ole Opry's very first performer, Uncle Jimmy Thompson. If you did, how about giving me a thumbs up? I upload new videos at least once a week, so if you want to be notified when new videos are posted, please ring that bell and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. So, until next time, remember, life is a wonderful journey. Take time and enjoy it, and I'll see you down the road. So long, everyone.